Hey everyone, my name is Luke Aberley and I'm here with my dad, Troy Aberley, and welcome back to our show. And today I have a very exciting and special guest who has done crazy and awesome things for the world. His name is Aaron Scotti. He went from an actor to a producer to now helping people all over the world do what they love. And he's such an inspiration. He started the Awakened Soul. And thank you, Aaron, for coming on today. And I can't wait to talk to you.
Oh man, thank you, Luke, for having me. I got to tell you, I'm more inspired by what you're doing than I could even imagine. You're so far ahead. This is awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. So, a quick little question I like to start off every single call is, what would you tell your 12-year-old self?
Wow, what a great question.
Thank you.
What would I tell my 12-year-old self? I would say, trust your intuition, trust your heart, and go within for the answers. Because I think I spent a lot of time at that age outward, trying to fit in, trying to do what I was supposed to do, the shoulds, And I think I would tell my 12-year-old, maybe at least to balance it a little more. Because there's so much within. We have all this intelligence within us that can be stripped away if we only go external and look outside of ourselves. So I would go back and say, you know what, Aaron, trust your intuition. You are more intelligent than you think, and you can balance it with the external world better.
I agree.
And also, it's all going to be okay.
Yes.
It's always going to be okay, and enjoy the ride. I don't know. I think I'd have a very long conversation with my 12-year-old self at this point, actually. But I'll try to keep it tight. Trust your intuition and enjoy the ride.
That is great advice. I like that. And that makes a lot of sense too, is like, stop holding yourself back, and just let yourself explore what really you want to do and all that. And I think you said that very, very well.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. So another question I have to maybe get it rolling is, what were your biggest obstacles going from when you're an infant to where you are now?
Oh, how much time do we have?
as long as you want.
Man, since the day I was born to now, there's been a handful of obstacles for sure. And I believe that we all come here. We choose at some soul level what family we're going to come into, and because we're going to learn certain lessons. And I definitely think it took me a while to realize that. And growing up where I did, it just felt challenging. Like you said, there were obstacles. I think money was a big one for me growing up, and, always hearing my parents say, oh man, we can't afford this, we can't afford that. And in hindsight, I understand how that conditioned my subconscious mind to believe that as truth, where I now believe that we all have all the abundance in the world accessible, but it's depends on what we believe, right? So that was a big obstacle for me, especially because they say money makes the world go around, right? So you're surrounded by money and you need money to do this and all these kinds of things. So with this lack mentality, the scarcity mentality was a pretty big obstacle for me. And it's funny because as I grow and now I have 2 kids, and I would have thought, how are we going to do it? How we figure it out? And there's abundance all around us. And when you believe that, I think it just, you can prove it to yourself more and more, right? And when you start to rewire that subconscious belief system, you can start to see it. You start to see it come more and more. You see the beauty of life, and what we were taught might not have been the absolute truth. And love is abundance. Family is wealth. These are the things that I've learned. So yes, that might have been an obstacle in my life, but because of the pressure and the contrast of that obstacle, it forced me to seek out and look for other ways to come back to that truth of abundance all around us. So that was probably one of the biggest obstacles. Another one was negativity. I grew up in Philadelphia, and my upbringing, my mom was just tried to be very positive under the circumstances, but my dad was, he worked hard and he worked a lot, and he was tired and in pain, and because he was doing his best under the circumstances and his understanding. But as a child, like, we absorbed that stuff. So that was a big obstacle for me. And now I have a thing going on with my left knee and my right foot where it causes some inflammation and pain. And I'll carry my son down the steps, and if I make a noise like, oh, like that, I'll notice Tyler's 1.5 and he'll repeat it. He'll go, oh. So now because of
the programming.
Yes. And I'm very aware of the programming now. So I now make sure I'll turn that into a whoop-a-doop-a-doo, like a joyful noise. And I make sure that I don't show him my pain right now. And in a way, like, I'll show him my vulnerability. I'll show him my heart. If I feel like crying, I'll cry. That was and now we go into another obstacle. Growing up was a part of that was, there was a lot of negativity and anger and, woe is me, and life is hard, and other people, the world's out to get me type of stuff that I was surrounded by. And that wasn't until I moved to New York to become an actor, which I guess we'll circle back to, that I saw that there was a whole world out there, and you could choose your energy. You can choose your emotional life. You can choose your beliefs. But the obstacles from birth, growing up in that environment, was that my subconscious was being wired and rewired to believe that life was hard. Scarcity was a real thing. Money was tight, So there were a lot of obstacles. My parents got divorced. That was an obstacle. Kids were mean. That was an obstacle, because then you had to try to fit in, which would mean detach from your truth and your heart and your sensitivity and your creativity to try to fit in and do what the cool kids were doing. And so all these obstacles growing up, really formed me. And it wasn't until I decided something wasn't right, and I moved to New York to become an actor. And then I started to notice that there was a whole world out there of people who, some were happy, some weren't, but you got to choose that under any circumstances in this now moment. Like right now, I can go look at the hospital bills that came in, and look at, this has to be cleaned, or there's a mess over there that my wife is losing her mind because there's a mess, right? Or I can look at this moment and go, how cool is this? How cool is this that you asked me to come on and talk to you, because you're inspiring the world in a way that I didn't have growing up. So I'm happy in this moment, because I'm choosing to focus on this moment and engage with you right now, rather than look at the things that might weigh me down. But without those obstacles growing up, not that you asked this, but without those obstacles growing up, I might not have gotten to this place where I could see the other side of the contrast, if that makes sense.
An airplane can't fly without resistance.
What's that?
An airplane cannot fly without resistance.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Neither can a bird, right? Because the wind.
Yeah. So when you really think about it, what you said was really beautiful, Aaron, because it, without that resistance and without those examples, you don't know what you're deciding to either go towards or move away from.
Right. Right. And, I relate it a lot to, a caterpillar who goes into the cocoon, right? and it starts out as a little wormy looking caterpillar, and it spins the cocoon, but the cocoon starts to suffocate this caterpillar in a way that forces it with resistance to wiggle out. You have to fight your way out. Otherwise, you're going to suffocate, right? And once you come out and then you drop, you realize you have wings and you can fly. So it's not until, I feel like I'm in the cocoon and I got like a little hole there. Like I know in my heart I can fly now. It's just time to jump, which these children come into my life and they kind of kick me off. They kick me out of cocoon, right? Because you have to fly. Oh, yeah. And then once you spread those wings, you go, oh, I can fly. Mm-hmm. But if I was just a butterfly from day one, you take it for granted and you might not appreciate the flight, right?
Yeah.
Good point. It helps you really become, with your gratitude, is being able to really have a lot of gratitude for what you could choose today. And I like that part of it. Thank you. You get to choose what you can focus on.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that very much. Yeah, I think some people might take for granted what you worked so hard for. Like you said, if you start out as a butterfly, you might take for granted flying. But if your caterpillar went into that cocoon and then escaped and then realized you could fly, you're so grateful for that. And I think that's really cool. And that really is a great quote.
Yeah. I think we chose to come here for lessons in some way. You know what I mean? And for my whole life, I was your age and I had this black cloud over my head. That's what I would say. I would say, oh, of course this happened to me. Of course. Then I was 16. Of course my car breaks down on high. Of course. Oh yeah. What a surprise. Of course this happened. Right. And guess what? I was right. I said I had a black cloud over my head and I was right because I believed it.
Yeah.
But then when you start to believe the opposite is true and I go, wow, I have a beautiful life. I have a beautiful family. I can put a seed in the ground and grow a tomato and then feed my family. Like that becomes true. Mm-hmm. So if you say you have a black cloud over your head, if you say that your life is hard, you'll be right. But if you look at it and go, okay, here's something that I used to do growing up. I would go, oh, why me? Why me? Oh, why is this happening to me? But I would say it as a victim. Like I had this victim mentality because it was built into my subconscious, right? Now I can keep the same question, but with a different intent, with a different energy behind it. I'll go, okay, why me? Why is this happening to me? More inquisitive, more curiosity. Like, okay, why is this happening to me? I know it's happening so that I can grow somehow. And how cool is that? Otherwise, I would just sit on the couch and eat potato chips, right?
Yeah.
So this
maybe
thing
it's happening for you.
Exactly. It's happening for me. And if I don't listen to that, it's almost like a knock at the door. Just a knock, 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 right? And then you don't answer the door. It's like knock, 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 knock. And you don't answer the door. The knock gets louder. It's not going to go away.
Yeah.
So
just at some point, it feels like a sledgehammer's coming at the door.
Exactly, right? It's like there are ninjas on my roof. Bang, yeah. So just answer on the first knock or the second knock and go, all right, where are we going with this? I've attracted this lesson into my life in some capacity, right? So why not open the door and see what we got?
I think that's a good point is, if I could add to that, is make sure you're aware of the opportunities. Open your eyes, open your ears.
I think awareness is key. Yeah.
That's one thing I agree with too, is like sometimes, you can be so focused on something and so you get different opportunities, but you turn them down because you just focus on this one thing. But then as you're going along, you're like, wow, actually, sure, this outcome is cool, but I should have paid attention to those things that were all around me. Like, for example, if you're starting a business and you're like trying to focus on that business, but then people are like asking you, maybe to do some sort of collaboration or something like that. And you're like, no, I have to focus on this business. But you're like, oh, actually that collaboration would actually be really, really important to me.
Right. You could be missing a cooperative component to grow that business, right?
Yeah.
I like to look at, I mean, if you have the tunnel vision, I like to look at it like a camera lens, right? You have a closed aperture, you're zoomed in like this. If you open the aperture, you get a broader perspective you can see around you.
Yeah.
It's almost like putting a puzzle together. This is what I say to my wife all the time, because I'm out here. I'm always big picture. I'm looking at the big picture around me, right? And she's zoomed in. So we make a good pair because sometimes I'm missing what's right in front in this moment, right?
Yeah.
But it's like looking at a puzzle. How do you put a puzzle together? Sometimes you're down there putting this piece with this piece with this piece, right? But sometimes you got to zoom out and you look at the box because the whole picture is right there on the box. You go and you look, oh, what's this big picture look like? And you go, okay, I remember, okay, that's all there. All right, I'm going to go look for a section and I'm going to put a section together. And then you come back out and you look at the whole box. But you have to have the ability to open and close the aperture of the camera. Otherwise, this is what we see a lot on TV, is they just show you what they want you to see.
Yeah.
And you're missing what's all around it. And like you said, that's a great point. If you're trying to start a business and I'm too busy. It's like, but here I want to contribute to your business. You're like, no, I got to do my business. Right? Because cooperative components come into our lives all the time. And we have to use discernment, obviously, because some people might come in with intentions that aren't great for your business, but that's also a muscle that we get to grow throughout life, is a discernment muscle. And that's extremely important, especially now we're seeing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There was a quote that I saw where it was this, it was a funny little animated quote, but what it was is this guy, he was in the ocean, he was drowning. And then this big boat comes by and said, do you need any help? And he said, no, God will save me. And then 15 minutes later, this other big boat comes by and said, do you need any help? And then he said, no, God will save me. And then so he dies. And then he says to God, why didn't you save me? He said, I sent you two big boats. And like, when you're focusing on your business, you'd be like, no, someone says, I want to do this collaboration with you. Like, no, I have to focus on my business to let it grow. And it's like, oh, okay. And then you get a whole bunch of different collaboration opportunities. Like, no, I have to focus on my business. And then it's like, why didn't my business exceed? And it's like, because you weren't open to anything.
Yeah. Right. Why do it alone? Right.
Yeah.
I love that, man. I love how your mind works. It's so awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, you've shared so much great knowledge. Thank you so much.
Of course.
So, I'm just gonna see another question. So, what was your first business that you started? At what age as well?
Okay, so here's something interesting. I was never really an entrepreneur because I'm not going to blame. I just wasn't. I always felt like I didn't have that guidance, which is why I was so enamored. And I was like, when Mark asked me, I was like, absolutely. Anyone who's teaching children that they could be a 1099 over a W-2. I mean, I think everybody in the world should have that opportunity to be an entrepreneur and not rely on a paycheck, so I went down that road most of my life, and man, I wish I started a lemonade stand or something, you know what I mean? But I didn't. And that's okay, because again, the contrast led me here. I relied on others for a paycheck, and a lot of time my love and my contribution and my energy was a little bit abused, because why wouldn't it be? I was really good at everything. I was the best employee that you would ever meet, right?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you take advantage? Because I was a nice guy too. I'm like, oh, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? So I wish I could answer that question differently, but one thing I always kept was my honest authenticity. And I'm not going to lie and try to make something up because I'm on a podcast, but I didn't start a business. Well, I was.
Could I challenge you on that?
Sure.
As an actor, are you not really a business? Like, I look at you as
so
being
it wasn't
the true.
Until I moved out.
Yeah, because to me, like when I look at you, like I look at as having a business as you were the business,
right?
You were solving a spot or a problem, if you will,
Yeah.
but people needed to be able to relate to you and have you play a part that set an example or delivered a message. No different than a salesperson or even somebody who owns a company. People were employed because of you.
Sure. I was trying to think back as a kid though, like the lemonades.
Sure, yeah,
I
no
was going,
worries.
yeah, I kind of missed the question, but you're right. And then I did remember there was when I, as a teenager, I started detailing cars. That was a little business, I guess. And I forgot about that. I feel like I've lived 10 lifetimes. It's wild. Plus, it's all blur now that I'm a parent. But yeah, so I guess there was a detailing cars. I was a teenager, and I wanted some money to buy fish tank stuff. I loved fish
Oh,
tanks.
cool.
So my first client was the owner of the pet store, and I'll never forget.
Nice.
He let me detail. He had a yellow, was it Nissan Xterra, and he had a Hummer, like when Hummers first came out. And that thing was a beast. I charged him like $100 or something. And looking back at it now, I was like, man, how did he let me do that? Should have been like $600. Of course, he let me detail his car. He's like, yeah, $100 to clean this monster, sure. So yeah, but yeah, I guess when I was an actor, would have been my first official business because you go out, you provide a service, you go and you audition, even though it still felt like employee work because at that time, my mentality was, oh, I hope they like me, which was something I had to flip. And you go in, you have to know that you have something to offer. And if it's meant for you, it is. If it's not, it's not. But it was a very interesting trajectory to go in with this, again, that mentality of, oh, I hope they like me too. It wasn't until I walked in with curiosity and confidence in myself to just go in and connect with the person across from me and tell a story and not worry about getting every single word right because that's not really what matters, right? And then I started kind of booking jobs when I kind of flipped that mentality of I actually have something to offer you, not I hope you like me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is like, yeah, I agree with that. But like, being out there, like, I think a lot of people, like you just said, like, I hope they like me, but be like, if they don't like you for who you are, then, obviously they don't value what you have to offer to them and they've missed out. And, that's just how it is. But yeah, I think that's how you should look at it instead of not, I hope they like me. I hope they value what I have valued for them.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you said that perfectly.
And if they don't, you just move on and and it's great. And you learn from it and you move on. And that's how you start to build that muscle, right? That intuition, that discernment muscle to feel that and go, okay, that one's not for me. And you could kind of start to feel the energy, right?
Yeah. Another question I wanted to ask you is, what inspired you to start the Awakened Soul?
Probably my son. I think, amongst many other things, but when we produced the Peanut Butter Falcon, and then we were doing press and distributing, and there was a lot of, it actually wasn't as easy as I thought, because with like the studio offers and stuff like that. And we ended up having to, self-distribute and worked with roadside attractions and, the producers that put up the funding for shooting the film also had to come in with money to distribute the film because the studios weren't making the offers that made sense based on the 50 or so screenings we were having for audiences. I mean, this movie was testing through the roof. Everybody loved it. And you would think you would get a big studio deal, and they just, it was very odd. And by this point, like I moved to New York in 2006 to become an actor, and then drove across the country in 2009. So I've been doing this for so long, and all I wanted to do was like inspire the world. And I thought that, movies and TV inspire, and Hollywood is the way to do it. So I went for it. And then when I started to feel that, I was like, I don't understand. I mean, this movie, what it's doing for the Down syndrome community, and it's so honest, and Zach is such a beautiful soul. The fact that it wasn't received by the machine to like take that momentum and run with it, and it still did well, but you would think like, you know, people would have been all over this. And something just kind of clicked. And I did another movie. I don't even know if my name's on it. I just stopped paying attention because my wife got pregnant and I was about to become a father. And I think the experience on set and befriending Zach, he really, I don't know if you've seen the movie or heard of the movie, but Zach is the lead actor and he has Down syndrome. Nobody's ever done that before. Usually you get somebody like, you know, to play somebody with autism or Down syndrome, or, you know, traditionally, I think we're seeing it more and more, but I mean, Zach was the lead of that film. And even Shia said, I want to be number 2 on the call sheet. Zach is the star. And everybody, even Dakota Johnson, you know, everybody made sure that Zach was the star of this movie because of who he was. Zach was just pure love. And if you're in a room with Zach, he'll tell you, I love you 100 times. And he means it every single time. And something about that just started, again, growing up in Philadelphia and having to be tough, be a man, suck it up, and men don't cry, started to build walls around my heart. Well, I didn't know it at the time. I know it now. But Zach, it was like he had a little chisel, man. He just chiseled that wall, chisel, just gently enough that it wasn't so aggressive and like, whoa, I'm exposed, right? But just chisel the wall out of my heart. And I give Zach a lot of credit for preparing me in a way to be a father. And then I just decided that I wanted to do something different. I was like, this machine of Hollywood, there's artistry and there's industry. And I feel like that industry overshadows the artistry so much that the artistry kind of gets lost or it's second fiddle. So I was like, you know what, rather than being a part of, you know, 1 million people or, you know, a big conglomerate that inspires or maybe not millions of people, what if I just started something where I could just be honest, be myself? And even if I spoke to one person, if one person heard what I had to say and it inspired them, maybe that's my purpose. And then maybe there's 2 people the next day. Maybe the next day there's 4 people, 4 or 5, you know? And I felt like that was a more solid connection, a more genuine connection. I could be myself. I didn't have to tiptoe. I didn't have to fit in. Today I could say one thing, and then tomorrow, if a piece of information came across that changed my mind, I could grow and I could grow and I could grow. And wanted to stop letting words kind of control me. Like if somebody calls me a hypocrite, maybe that's where they're coming from.
Yeah.
You know? And it was an interesting thing, but it was really, really inspired a lot by what Zach did for me and having a child on the way, and really wanted to find a way to create the bond that you and your dad have, you know? So I see you too. And I'm telling you, I want to cry right now. Because I could feel it, and I hope.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
That's
That's
why.
a beautiful story.
That's why
That's
I
a beautiful
stopped.
story.
You know?
Yeah, that is an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you to Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's really
I
cool.
tell you, I think people with Down syndrome are just angelic beings of light. You know, what kind of soul decides in the world we live in today, hey, I'm going to jump into that body and deal with that and still hold the highest vibration? That's a strong soul.
Yeah.
So, you know, I admire that.
There's a lot of gift to studying and being surrounded and open to learning, and for the gift that's there from people like Zach, right? And that's really cool to be able to get people to look at things differently and not only have a standard always, if you will, of how life youth see it, look at it from everybody's point of view,
Yeah.
opens up the beauty.
Yeah. Now we get, yeah. So then I go into like the whole diversity thing, and I'm like, diversity is more than what we're being told.
Mhm.
It's experiencing life through the eyes of someone else that's different to me. Doesn't matter how they're different. It just matters that they grew up with a different perspective. And if we just embraced that different perspective and ask questions like, hey man, what was your life like? How cool is that? That's why I think podcasts are so cool. We didn't know each other, and then you get to ask me questions, and I'm learning so much from you. You know, like that's cool. That's diversity. That's how we embrace and grow. And if we taught our kids everything that we learned, you know, I'm 38, if I taught my son the way that I was brought up, like we'd all be stuck. We're meant to evolve. Things are meant to change. And somehow we've been programmed to believe that change is scary and the unknown is scary. And I believe the unknown is where God lives. Unknown is where love is. The unknown is where the beauty and the magic is in the world. But we have to have the courage to step into that unknown and say, you know what? Not everybody's going to be okay with this. And that has to be okay with me. Otherwise, I'm going to be stuck too. But I want to grow.
But just imagine how boring a movie would be if you already knew the outcome.
Yeah.
Each and every time. You gotta have suspense. You gotta have thrill and question.
I think the
and
unknown
chance and all that.
I think the unknown is where creativity comes from. You
don't 100%.
Yeah. What is your biggest investment that you found that was the best investment that you ever made? Either in yourself, physically, or whatever.
Honestly, I would have to say building a family, having a child.
Yeah.
So much so that we had another one right away. So now I have a 1.5-year-old and we have a 3-week-old girl.
Wow.
And I think that was the best investment I've ever made.
Yeah.
Now I could tell you that kidpreneurs.
Yeah, I could tell you that, you know, I was telling my wife when Bitcoin was $700 and Ethereum was $8 that we should get in now. Because again, intuition told me that this is where it was going to go. Now it's all convoluted and everything, but back then would have been an amazing investment. I played a little bit of, I have a little bit, but nowhere near what I could have. But again, like, it's not just about money. I think the best investment I ever made was leaning into family, and being mindful and present with my children.
Yeah.
And it's still yet to be, I mean, it's such a new investment, right? It's only been a 1.5 years so far, but it's the best investment I've ever made.
Wow.
I totally agree with you on that one.
You better, otherwise you get booted off the show.
Yeah. No, it just, you know, it took us a long time to figure what we were doing, and so no, I mean, I look at now like where life has gone because of investing in yourself and your family. It's like wow. But wanting to be different and interrupt the old pattern of DNA that was, you know, programmed into you, like what we were kind of talking about earlier, and being able to, I think the coolest part is being able to write the new chapter on how your family is going to become for, you know, generations after you, Aaron, is what's going to be really fun.
Yeah. I think my biggest thing is what I've learned over the past 15 years, probably, is when I really started to lean in to there's something I've been missing, you know, and positivity, spirituality, but I was dabbling, was that I came here to end the cycle of generational trauma. I think it's been passed down. And I think I'm the rock bottom. Like I say, it stops with me. And I understand how it happened because of all the, you know, programming and stuff. You just don't know, but it's kind of blessing and sometimes feels like a curse to be smacked by that bus and go, oh, I need to wake up. You know what I mean? So that I can end the generational trauma and kind of start a clean slate for Tyler and now for Katie, so that they can do what you guys are doing. I'll never force my children to do anything because I didn't accomplish that. Like, you got to be a professional basketball player because I said so. If you want to play basketball, like if he leans, he'll play with the basketball and he'll dunk it in a little hoop and yay, and that's fun. But if then he wants to go bang on the drums, like that's what we're doing today. Whatever you want, I'm going to lean in, and he wants to explore this and he wants to explore that. And I just want to support that.
I think oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I think like he said, like, I think some parents put a lot of like blinders on their kids and like, here's your stuff now, you can only focus on that. But like what you're doing is like giving them all different things to experience with and see what they like and what they're passionate about and like what they find interesting.
Right.
And I think instead of just, focusing them like, hey, you can only focus on this. I want you to become a basketball player. Here's a basketball and like a net and all that. Focus on that. But you can't like do anything else. And I think that what you're doing is super important.
I hope so. I think so. And again, I mean, I'm learning to trust my intuition and my heart more. And that's what my heart tells me. So, because otherwise, if you're forcing them to do something that's not innate, that's not in their heart, it's almost like you're forcing them to swim upstream when it's not necessary, right? We could go with the flow. Yeah. Why swim this way? It's exhausting. So, and then listen, nobody's perfect. We're figuring it out every day. It comes with its own challenges. You could easily say, oh, that kid has ADD, slap him on medicine.
Yeah. They
did to me, but I'm like starting to remember I was a very intelligent child. And I just don't think it was nurtured because, we weren't taught how to nurture that exploration, that curiosity. We're told, don't daydream, stop daydreaming, memorize your studies. I'm not saying don't do well in school and all that. Like, I got good grades because that's what you were supposed to do, but I always was aching for exploration. And when I would get outside, I would look under every rock for nature and animals and like stay connected. There's a balance, right? It's great. All these kids are going to be really good at computers and programming and understand that stuff. But don't forget about the other side. That's how we find balance. Get out in nature, bare feet in the ground. Like Tyler will go to the park and he, a lot of times he won't even go on the playground. He wants to go, look, there's bees on the flowers, and he'll pick flowers and smell them. And he'll go, mommy. And like, he picks a flower to give to his mom and he'll put his hand on a tree and say love. Like, I think that's really important. And I think that's organic. There's a connection in nature that I think sometimes gets stripped from people because like you said, you have to focus on this and do good at this one thing. And then you're not as well-rounded. And what if you come across somebody that you can't have a conversation with now because they don't talk about basketball?
Yeah. I agree with that very much.
His son sounds a lot like you, Luke. You paid a lot more attention to the environment than you did to just the object.
Yeah, like I remember like my dad would tell me I would have an iPad, but I wouldn't really care about the iPad. I'd rather go outside. Like there was like I had like this little iPad. My favorite game was Angry Birds to play on it. But most of the time, I loved camping and being outdoors in nature. I love going outside when I'm not, editing or whatever. I way rather be outside than be on my phone watching random videos or whatever. And I think that's really powerful to, expose your kids to nature and whatever they want.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think that's probably why you're doing what you're doing, because you found balance.
Yeah.
And you can go out there and then you can come in and you can do this because you're also engaging with people and growing this way. Right. And then you go out into nature and there's a balance.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things on the screen aren't really good for us.
Like my dad always says, who always talks about, you could give your kid an iPad and just say, I'm busy, I'm doing something, I'm working, go watch this. And then once they become older and you're like, why aren't you more successful? And, why don't you want to hang out with me? It's like, because you didn't pay attention to me. So why should I pay attention to you now?
It's true. And then all they did was consume other people's creativity.
Yeah. And then they care more about the person behind that screen than their own family, because their family didn't give them any attention.
Right.
So my dad, he makes sure, he always makes time for me, hanging out with me, doing stuff together.
Dad's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And it's so important. Listen, I understand why it seems like it's easy to throw an iPad at a crying kid or throw him some sugar. But I know from experience, because I pay attention and I'm uncomfortably honest with myself, which is that's key. You have to be able to be uncomfortably honest with yourself in order to grow. Otherwise, you can just ignore it, right? But what I've noticed is you might think it's easy in this moment because they stop crying, but it's short-sighted, because over and over and over, you're conditioning them. And then you're going to have a 20-year-old that doesn't want to be around you.
No.
He's like, why would I want to spend time with you? You didn't want to spend time with me back then.
Yeah. That's like I always see, like, those little pictures or quotes or whatever. It's like, hey, can I hang out with you? I want to hang out with you. And like when you're a little kid, and then all of a sudden it's like when the kid's 20 and it's like, hey, the adult's like, hey, can I hang out with you? Like, no, I wanted to hang out with you, but now you want to hang out with me because you're bored, you're retired, you didn't pay attention to me, so why should I?
Yeah. Or you probably, as you get older, you realize what's more important in life, and you're like, man, those years flew by and I wish I was more present. It's cat to the cradle, Troy knows it.
Well, very much.
I mean, I heard that song after Tyler was born, and I was like, whoa, I never heard this song.
That one hit hard, because I was like, oh my gosh.
Heard this song before Tyler was born. Now I can hear that song. You could feel that song. You were like, I'm like, never. And
it reminds you, it's a song that will often remind you when you know that you're associating something to that, where you maybe are going back into an old paradigm, as my mentor, like Bob Proctor, will talk about, and all of a sudden you realize that you're hearing the song and you're like, no, I got to get back to the path that I want to be on, versus the one that I've drifted off back onto because of an old paradigm.
Right.
So yeah, I hold the song really close to me, because it plays automatically on my playlist when I'm going off track.
Right, exactly, like accidentally.
Yeah.
What a coincidence! I needed to hear this song right now. I mean, if you don't believe that there's something greater in the world, then we're not paying attention. We are connected to some power. I mean, again, we don't have to get into that. We could call what everybody wants to call it something different. That's fine. But we are not.
But you got to believe in something.
We are not.
Got to believe there's either a purpose or a path or a spirit or what have you. Come up with anything, but you got to believe that you're here for a purpose.
Yeah, we're not here arbitrarily.
Yeah. No. What's another question you have, Luke?
Another question I had was, what is a message today you would like to tell your audience or the world that you'd like to turn into a legacy for a future path?
Man, again, I really think we're today we're being shown like it's time to really go back within and listen to our heart. And it's like I said, growing up, building all the walls, right? This happened to all of us to some extent. Some walls are different. Some walls are made of bricks. Some walls are made of stone. Some walls are made of sticks. Some walls are thicker than others. But we've been building walls around our heart for a while, thinking it's protecting us. And it's blocking that beautiful source, that energy, that love that can guide us. I think our heart is our GPS system in life. And if you got the wall, it can't get the signal, right? So, I think our emotions are our superpowers. And especially as a man, but not just as a man, women are told, oh, you don't cry too much, right? So, but as a man, you're not supposed to have certain emotions. Don't cry, suck it up, be a man, right? But again, it's not just men. Women have, it's like, oh God, you're so emotional, right? It's weird that society has done this. And I think it's time to just plant our feet in the ground and know that we are more powerful than we've ever been told or led to believe. And come back to that. Come back to that power. Trust. If you lead with your heart and you're not hurting anyone, then it's okay to say no for something that doesn't serve you. And lead with what you want in return. If you want somebody to be kind with you, to you, lead with kindness, right? If you want humor in your life, then go be funny, and humor will come back, right? So if you're like, why didn't they laugh? Well, maybe because you're not laughing, maybe you're not smiling. Yeah. But lead with what you want. If you're saying, oh, this person doesn't love me, then again, why? Instead of like, why me? Go, okay, why? Maybe I need to love myself. Yeah. And maybe I need to send that love out to others, and then that love comes back around. So we just have to flip it. It's almost like we've been living in an upside down world, and it's time to right side up that, right? Instead of going out external and go, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? Go in. And all the answers are here already. So if we just lead with our heart and we're not hurting anyone, then we give other people permission to do the same. And sometimes it takes being uncomfortably honest with ourselves to go, if something's coming up and it's showing up more than once, and then we get defensive, it's a tough cookie to swallow, but we have to say, why am I getting defensive here? Is there something I need to work on from my own past, or something that I'm hiding from that I can look at? Because the second you look in and you go, okay, what am I actually doing here that I could change in myself? It's so freeing. It's so freeing. Then you have nothing to hide. Then people can't make you do things you don't want to do, because you're standing in love and truth. And again, when you're able to do that, it's fascinating, the people that start to show up in your life. There's quality over quantity. I used to know so many people that were acquaintance. Where are they now during this time? A lot of people are living in fear and just doing what they're told. And we don't have to get into all that, but there is something to be said about those people kind of are exiting my life, which created space for people like you to enter my life with quality and profound questions and exploration. And what are we doing here? What's it all about? And what can we do to improve? And how can we grow through this changing time? So that's a long-winded answer. I don't know if you're going to get the answer.
I love that. I think I agree with you. Like, instead of having like 50 acquaintances, why not have 10 really good partners or really good friends that you can rely on? And, if you're going through hard times, you can have someone to talk to, and, creating those really powerful connections with really powerful people. I think that's way better than just having people that you talk to for 15 minutes or, kind of, people who, you still know them, but you're not connected that much. You're not connected together. You're not really good partners. You want to create really good friends and who will last with you for your entire life.
Yeah. I want some depth.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about the weather every day.
Yeah.
Depth. it's how we grow. There's depth in our soul, you know. I don't know
Aaron,
why
when I
people are
was
so afraid
34
of having
years old,
conversations. Go ahead.
oh, sorry, when I was 34 years old, I woke up one morning on December 1st and I said, you know, it's time to start a new chapter in my life because I was becoming addicted to alcohol and anxiety. I was surrounded by people who had a lot of criticism, and I just didn't like the path it was going. I knew that I was going in a path that everybody else was. And for me, I decided that day I didn't want my kids to be around somebody who was turning into be an alcoholic, somebody who was negative, somebody who was broke mentally and financially, all those things. And I literally that next day, Aaron, I actually took time to fire 11 people out of my life that were not serving me. And when I did that, it was hard because some of them were family, some of them were friends since I was 4 years old.
Yeah,
And I was 34 when I did that. But what was so interesting was being able to being able to do that. And then it allows, like you said, and that's a beautiful statement. It allows beautiful people like Aaron Scotti to come in to my life and into Luke's life, and us to also allow each other into our own lives. Because at that time, before I was 34, I felt like I was acting in a really, really cool movie that, yes, was a lot of fun, a lot of partying, and a lot of everything. But I was acting in a show that people were tired of watching, and I was tired of acting in.
yeah.
Right. And so it
Dance,
was time to
dance.
start a new movie. But this movie was going to be a reality show, and it's going to be the truth. Right.
A
I'd love
real
to sit down
reality
with you
show.
guys all in a yeah, and I'd like to sit like with groups of people like this, you know, both of you, put a whole pile of cameras on us and just spend the time just doing a documentary of what life could look like if you didn't make a change, and what life is because of it, and would inspire other people, and just sit there with like the most boring background in the world and show people, hey, here's real stories of real people that chose a path of inspiration and creativity, as Luke would put it, rather than just following and being who everybody else thinks you should be.
Yeah. Well, I think we're seeing that documentary all around us right now.
Yeah, exactly.
We're definitely seeing the parting of the Red Sea, or whatever you want to call it. There's definitely, you know, it's, again, it is what it is. And it depends how you look at it, but we're definitely seeing a divide of people who think for themselves and people who just do what they're told to, you know, and for lack of a better phrase, but it's an interesting time to be alive. That's for sure. And I think we all came here for this. And man, I feel your story. Like I did the same thing, and it was ripping Band-Aids off, man. People that, I mean, they must have been shocked, but I became a father. Like I just, there was nothing going to stop me from flipping that upside down so that my son
being all in
the clean slate. I was like, I don't want your fear energy around my son. Might have been a little harsh. Could I have done it differently? Sure. But also, how would that have gone? I feel I was always, I would think like, if I was soft about it and like, well, I don't know, they would have had me in an intervention going, oh, we're worried about you. I was bold. I was like, there's no wiggle room here. Right.
Amen. That was me.
And yeah,
it was very cut and dry.
And it was very challenging, not just for
Yeah.
me, as I'm sure you know, but also for my wife. She's like, you're isolating us from our friends. And I'm like, they're not our friends. I mean, I got very, very bold. Like I became the Incredible Hulk. It was very challenging. And, you know, I went through something a few years ago and a few years before 2020, where the medical industry just kind of gave me the runaround. I had a swollen finger, and it led to your spine and this and that. And I started to hear what these experts were telling me and see the MRIs, and they were showing, well, this is bad, and this is a lifetime thing, and we can only manage it. And it's a whole long story that I want to get into, but because I'd keep you for another 4 hours. But I was dead. I was a vegetable. I was 200 pounds. I was taking all their pills and physical therapy and all this stuff. And like, as they would tell me something, then I was like, this all started with a swollen finger. And then one day they tried to give me an epidural for the pain, and something clicked. And I was like, this is, by the way, Luke, this is what I was talking about. There's a little knock at the door or the phone's ringing, and you just ignore it. You ignore it. You ignore it. And the swollen finger turns into nerve pain shooting up my arm for 9 months, and I can't sleep. And then it was the doctors telling me my spine, and then my back hurt. And then I was overweight. I couldn't move. And like, it's like, you know, God, spirit, soul, energy, something is deep intuition was knocking at the door, and they were treating me as if I was hit by a bus. And the day that they tried to give me an epidural, I said that. I was like, they're treating me like I was hit by a bus. And I wasn't. So this manifested from within. If it manifested from within, I could heal from within. And if I don't do this now, I'm going to get hit by a real bus because I'm not paying attention to the signs. And that's when it clicked. I was like, this finger is the only finger on my body where I wear jewelry. It's like, this is a symbol of marriage and love, right? Maybe I need to heal my heart. Maybe I need to heal my marriage. And it didn't even seem like it was bad, and it wasn't, but there's still depth. There was deep healing that needed to happen. And I said, no, pain is information. I'm not doing the epidural. I'm done taking your pills. I'm done going to physical therapy, and I'm done telling my body that it's broken. And within like 2 weeks, I could go back to the gym. It was fascinating.
Wow.
And when I stopped, I think it was actually like 2019 that happened. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done telling my body that it's broken. So I'm about to be a father. I need to figure something out. And then my son was born on Christmas Eve, 2019, which was 3 months before March of 2020. And the rest is history, man. I never looked back. And so look, during that time and stripping myself of all their medicine too was hard, as you know. So it was going down the alcohol slope. I get it. It was hard, man. I was like, how do you do? Like, I went off of everything cold turkey, and it was a lot.
Same here.
It was a lot, but something stronger. And again, I didn't know what that was at the time that said I could heal my body with my mind. I know now it comes from something just greater, comes from wherever we're created, you know? But I would cry. I was crying. I cried every day for 4 months. All that buildup. I grew up, I didn't cry because you weren't supposed to as a man. All that buildup came out. And through the tears, I just said, thank you, God. I don't know why this is happening. Thank you. Thank you. I just found gratitude I knew that I was at this rock bottom period, and I knew I had to go through it. I said, I don't know why this is happening, but I know it's for a purpose. And then, 2020 came around, and they're talking about science and trust this and that. And I was like, oh, that's why I went through that when I did. Because I had to study medicine and science that I wasn't being taught, like quantum science and epigenetics and all this kind of stuff, and breath work and meditation. It was fascinating. Law of attraction, Bob Proctor type stuff, which allowed me to kind of cruise in a different way, So there's blessings if we want to see it. But if I took that epidural, I can't imagine where I'd be right now. It could be these moments, man, I can look at the butterfly effect of that moment right there.
Yep.
I could have gone this way, but I chose that way. But I can pull back right now and go, man, look at the slippery slope if I went that way and took that epidural.
Wow.
It's wild. It wasn't easy. As you know, Troy, it was not easy, man.
But it's so liberating to be able to say it, you've done it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Take on the next challenge.
Exactly.
But I'm very open with Luke about it too, and his brother, because that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Right? It's way more fun to say you stood up for what you wanted to change and be able to, picture in your mind what you really wanted as that goal and that outcome. That's what I love doing, is helping people with that. And you're going to do that forever too, Aaron. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And congratulations to you too. It's not the easiest thing in the world. And it's a beautiful thing that you're open with Luke about it, because then it doesn't get, that slippery slope doesn't get that far.
Mm-hmm.
These kids are the future of our world. They're going to.
Yeah, no, I need him to.
The world.
I need him to be able to look after me, so I got to train him good.
I say the same thing. Like, one day you're going to carry me around.
Yeah. You bet. Do you have any other questions, Luke?
I don't have any questions anymore. Do you have any questions?
Is there a way we can help you, Aaron, with what you're doing? Is there something today or in the future that we can be a part of that would help you grow your brand or your purpose, your legacy?
Absolutely. I mean, I would love to stay in touch with you guys if you're open to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please.
And Luke, if you want, you could come. We could have you as a guest on the Awakened Soul. Show some of these grown-ups what's up in the world.
I'd love to.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah. And my partner's name is Lucas. And then, another thing that I thought, so this is how my mind works. I'm a connector, that's why I enjoyed the producing part. As an actor, you kind of show up, stand on your mark and do your thing, but don't touch that, don't help that. And I was always like, I did construction, I would like to problem solve, so when I got into producing, it kind of fulfilled that part of me where it's like, oh, there's a problem and it needs to be solved within 12 hours. It got my juices flowing, right? But I was always a connector. I'm like, oh, you need to meet this person. You need to meet this person. And it's funny because I'm like, who do I introduce to a 12-year-old guy? But you're such an adult already. Like, I want to keep, I'll keep it in mind. Anybody who might be a cool interview for you, I'll try to send them your way. But I also have 2 kids that I would love to introduce you to. Lucas is 15. Their names are Lucas and Chase Barker. Lucas is 15 and he's like you. He's a genius, man. And he's constantly, what made me think of it is because you want to teach kids how to be entrepreneurs, right? Well, for Christmas last year, he didn't want a computer for Christmas. He wanted the parts to build his own computer for Christmas. And he put together a whole business plan to present to his mom of how he's going to use it, how it's going to help the world, So if you're open to it, I'd love to introduce you to Lucas and his brother Chase. Maybe you can have them on the show. He's all into virtual reality. He's built his own virtual reality stuff and he has really cool entrepreneurial ideas and he's only 15. And I don't know, I thought maybe it'd be a good connection for you. You guys, I couldn't even imagine what you guys would come up with together, but maybe a good guest for your show and a good, friend to have. They're now in South Carolina.
Well, yeah, that would be epic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys would get along really well.
I have a question that I'd never imagined in 1,000 years of asking somebody.
Nice.
Would the world love a documentary or a film that people, like right now everything's YouTube, or Zoom meetings and whatnot. Is there a way of helping inspire our world as to being better parents, being better fathers? Is there a documentary or is there a way of doing that in the entertainment industry, the film industry, Aaron? I never even thought of this question until all of a sudden as you're saying some things that you are, but is there something there where, I think of like Oprah Winfrey and her Soul Sundays and things, where, you go there just to hear something, or maybe you're not being the greatest dad or the greatest mom or what have you, and the wrong messages. Is there something out there that someone would rent or subscribe to for an hour and a half that'd be like, oh my gosh, it's like the pursuit of happiness?
Well, it's funny. I actually just was speaking to Lucas about this. I think, because we're doing the Awakened Soul and it's very broad, but I also bought the awakenedparents.com because I just think I'm still finding my way. Like I said, I came from that machine to what do I have to offer the world and just being I just want to be authentic. I don't want to tiptoe. I don't want to walk on eggshells. I don't want this director has these political views, blah, 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 blah. I don't deal with it. I wanted to share my heart in every given moment. And, of course we need to bring in money. But I want that to be an energy exchange of love. I want money to come in for doing something that people want. And, but
is there a way we could do that with like a guy like Luke and that mission he's on and that I'm on? Like, we actually own kidpreneurfamilychallenge.com.
Let's figure it
because
out.
we bought kidpreneurfamilychallenge.com, and how many videos did we do now, Luke? We did
20 almost.
And we literally get, we do all these little modules through our Kajabi program, and lesson one, we have lesson one, setting a goal. And actually it's funny because it follows a lot of Bob Proctor stuff now when I look at it, but I'm certified through Tony Robbins and Bob Proctor, but it's I don't know, I just think, like, how do you really, I think we have such an opportunity right now to really inspire America.
Yeah, well, I was telling Lucas, I was like, it's more of a niche, but it's a huge niche. I mean,
but look at the pursuit of happiness. Like here's a movie that Will Smith and his actual son did together, right? And I never once looked at that movie as a celebrity thing with Will. I looked at it as a real father and son story of what really happens in the world.
Yeah.
And things are hard, and and the difference between privileged and not, and just that passion of envisioning a future life.
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to think our mission is that, to show it doesn't have to be that hard. That was part of that paradigm. That was part of that construct. So I think I almost got to the point where I was like, I'm done talking to adults. I was like, I'd rather do a children's show, or like, my wife write children's books together. I'm like, I just got to a place where I'm just like, these, adults are set in their ways and don't want to hear it. But being able to speak to parents and kind of show, like, it's okay to be vulnerable, and like, don't think we know everything. I believe that, again, whatever you believe in, but I think the second Tyler was born, he came directly from source. He came directly from God with this
God sent
intelligence. And everybody says, no, you're his authority figure and you have to. I'm like, guys, I think there's a balance here. I watched Tyler and I learned from Tyler, because that's where I was. And that, I think that innate intelligence was stripped from me when I jumped into society in the matrix, and my parents just trying to figure it out as best they could under the circumstances, right? But we're now in a world where there's a lot more information, and ignorance is a choice. Now, you have to choose to be ignorant.
Yeah.
You can use discernment and go, listen, there's a lot of misinformation out there. Don't get me wrong. That's where the discernment muscle comes in. What do you read, or what do you see, or what do you hear that vibrates in your body? If you feel those chills, and you can take a deep breath, maybe that's what truth feels like. And if something like turns your stomach, or you're breathing shallow and fear, and like, maybe that's not true.
Well, this is giving me chills, Aaron, because this is the stuff here, like, where I'm like, what? Wouldn't it be cool as legacy to be able to look back and say, what? We've got some cool young kids in our lives. We've all decided that, that there's a different way. And like Luke said, not living through, someone else's eyes or what have you. What if we were to lay that out on a piece of paper and really design something where it's like, 50 years from now, Tyler and Luke get to laugh and say, hey, our dads got together and they put together their talents, and they put together, you're a producer, right? And this Troy guy came on the show with my dad and Luke, and thought, hey, why can't they do some kind of a video together, and or do some kind of project that for the next 100 years people look back and say, on a Google review, most inspiring things to watch, right?
Yeah. Well, this is how I like to operate. I love that.
By the way, I would never in 1,000 years would have thought I'd be asking Aaron Scotti this question today, but
I thought I would have been asked by Troy Aberley, So, but that's the beauty of life. Luke, this is exactly what you were talking about. You could be like, I'm too busy. I need to focus on my business.
Yeah.
I'm not open to the cooperative components. I mean, like I said, I'm still finding my way. I'm a new father. I spent my whole life like, oh, I'm going to be an actor. And you keep your head down. You eat cereal with roaches, and it might take 40 years to be, but why? Why do I have to struggle? Why do I have to suffer through that? Just because, oh, there's gold at the end of the rainbow? No, there's gold right now in this moment.
Yeah.
So I'm looking to see what the next thing is to offer the world. What is the legacy? And it's going to have to do with children, our children. And it could be a collaboration with our children and each other and other parents who are open and
We got
want
to get parents to shift their mind
Yeah.
to say, hey, you know what? Troy and Aaron took the time to change the direction they were going on.
Yeah.
What in my, like, if I can picture this, and I'll use it from Bob Proctor, what am I willing to give up? And sometimes it's shitty bullshit beliefs, right? That someone else gave me because it was convenient for them.
Yes. But then, listen, the biggest weapon out there is peer pressure and shame and guilt. That's how you get people to do stuff, but it's not organic, man. And it's hard. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's so much more powerful and so much more fulfilling when you can stand there and tell your child, and they're like, what did you do during this time back then? Like, I got a couple things, like, because in the beginning I was very frustrated. I'm like, what are you guys doing? And we're more powerful than in your body, and you can heal yourself and all this stuff. And law of attraction, if you think something, you're going to attract it, right? But now I've come to accept that we're all on our own journey, and life is a choice, and you can choose whatever you want, and I don't need to be angry because other people want to choose, and I want to try not to judge people. So I'm like, give them what they want. Listen, we all fall into traps, and I will admit I fell into a lot of traps in the beginning of a lot of the stuff going on now, where I was judging other people and I was judging myself and all that. But we're all on this journey, and we're all on different parts of the journey. And like I said, the thing that happened to me physically and medically was a blessing that it happened to me sooner, because I had to face a lot of my own personal trauma. And I think in 2020, we're facing trauma collectively. There's no hiding from it, right? And I think that trauma is what puts us into that cocoon, and now everybody's suffocating in a way that's forcing us to wiggle out at our own pace. And eventually, I hope that we all learn that we can fly like a butterfly, right?
Yeah.
But in the meantime, because we have some differences with people from our past and stuff, and we talked about ripping the Band-Aid off, and right now I say give them what they want. And then another motto of mine that I have come up with in the past couple of months is save your family, make new friends. I'm not trying to force my old surroundings to see the way I see it. They don't want to. Maybe they never will. Maybe they don't see it yet. And if they do, I want to be here on this side of things with open arms, ready to embrace, and as bold as I was in the beginning, I want to just now be like, well, I'm here, man. And I understand I was programmed. I'm still programmed. It's layered. I'm peeling the layers, but I always want to hold space for people as they start to awaken to the fact that we are more powerful than we were led to believe, and we're more capable, and we could share love and grow through that way rather than fear. So I just have to hold that space and love from afar. So it keeps me open for new friends like you guys to come into my life.
Yeah.
We love that.
Yes.
And there's
Thank you,
Tyler
Aaron.
right on cue. So,
Perfect timing. Well, Aaron, thank you on behalf of myself and all the dads that I'm trying to inspire. And Luke,
Thank
I'll let
so
you say a
much
few
for coming
words.
on.
yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for having me. And now my wife's texting, so I do have to speaking of dad, it's time to go.
No problem.
Tyler, but thank you guys for inviting me. I hope that was helpful, and please start a text chain. Let's keep in touch.
Yes.
And Luke, I'll
Awesome.
introduce you to the boys.
Yes. Thank you. I'd love to connect with them.
Awesome.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you
Okay,
so
everybody.
much. Bye,
You
everyone.
betcha. Thank you.